Hello, hi to all. Welcome back to the Sustainable Sundays. I'm Moran. How are you?
Hello. Hi, Domenico. How are you? It's great to be
Fine.
back on
Yeah,
Sustainable Sundays.
of
Today, we're
course.
going to talk about
Oh,
Stockholm 50 and
SB56.
SB 56 in Bonn.
Actually, yes. These are like two important moments for the like UN scenario, we can say. But I mean, they are like a very important moment for the world community that is dealing with environmental issues. No.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, well, in a minute, we'll go into what those events were, are, and how this plays into the whole community of the people who are on the front line of protecting our future and climate change. So, how should we begin? Should we begin chronological order?
Yeah, let's go like this. Let's start with Stockholm. I will give you
Hmm.
the floor first to explain a little bit or what's happening around there, and just
Yeah,
to say to our audience, Stockholm plus 50 is not just 55 times Stockholm, but is an appointment. They want to remind and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first assembly of the UN Environmental Protection Agencies in Stockholm that happened in 1972. So now it's like the 50th anniversary, and I mean, it was a big event, a big celebration. But I leave the floor to Moran to give us a hint on what was there in Stockholm.
right. Well, first of all, for those who don't know, Sweden actually leads in teaching sustainability. And so one of the first schools teaching sustainability came out of Sweden and Stockholm. I myself have been working with some of the graduates of the programs there. They're fascinating. And so because they have so much experience, and they were kind of pioneering the awareness, especially through education. It was marking a moment that for anyone who's kind of in the climate change sphere, so to speak, we know that there's a lot to learn from the people, who have been swimming in this uh, mindset uh, for a long time. So Stockholm 50, let's just say personally, I only found out I was going 24 hours earlier. So within about 6 hours of packing a bag, I was on my way. And what's beautiful about it is that a lot of the people who are actually in the COP sphere, who will be going to COP27, have gone to previous COPs, also found themselves there at Stockholm, participating in panels and giving speeches and meeting decision makers and other people who are either in innovation or somehow influencing the climate crisis that we're in right now, and what we can do to raise our voices and amplify the message of the urgency that we're in. But also, I think this one was very much more with a celebratory air to it, but using the opportunity that we're all in the same place to see what we can do together to strengthen our ties, our relationships, and expand our relationships as well. Um, anytime that people come in from all over the world, especially around a shared mission and goal, um, when you create the space for that, there's a lot more room for growth and opportunity. So there was the big main conference, and then there were side events. It seemed as though walking down the streets, some of the locals were aware, and some of the locals seemed to be unaware of the events that we were there for, um, which was surprising in a sense, but I have to say that Sweden in general and Stockholm specifically was amazing. Um, the people are nice. It's beautiful. The system is clean and smooth, and there are so many opportunities to be more sustainable because the shops there are more sustainable. Or on menu items, you can see that some of the products that they're using in restaurants, etc., are either locally sourced or farmed sustainably. And we always talk about the fact that we need to transition, right, Domenico, that it's not an overnight solution for this crisis. Even you and me, we can talk about solutions and what we can do and what decision makers can do for hours. But I think getting the solutions in the hands of civil society is actually a place where we have a little bit of a void, and we need to fill it because it's bridging the gap, it's filling the gap, and also not only putting the pressure on our leaders, but on the people themselves and the decisions we make every day. And so for me, Stockholm 50 was the main event. There were side events, and then there were some other activities and private meetings. I can say there was an incredible space created by We Don't Have Time. Do you know We Don't Have Time? No, they're a great initiative that's actually growing. They even have an app called We Don't Have Time. And what they did there was they hosted broadcasts with content, interviews, and panels with fascinating conversations with the people who had come from all over the world, addressing many, many different angles of climate change, since we do have to approach it multilaterally. But one of the interesting things there was talking actually. I think this is the first time. Yeah, this was the first time I've been in a space with my comrades and allies from the climate change movement, who, when we were meeting since the Russia-Ukraine war started, and that was an interesting angle to hear from the Europeans who were there and people from Asia and South America and North America who had come all the way to Stockholm, and also take that now into account for part of what's both propelling the problem and also how is it that when we talk about climate change, so many times people are convinced that the only thing we need to focus on is nature, green, environment, weather, where actually part of the atmosphere that we need to change is even the atmosphere between us, how wars affect the climate, and how we need to work together way beyond just preventing the crisis on a weather and emissions and fossil fuels and carbon, etc. If we continue having wars, we're not going to get anywhere. We just let alone the impact on the rest of the world in terms of the fossil fuels, the food systems, and and where we are in history. So that was part of the fascination that I had there. In addition, there were like spaces that were held for people to meet at, and there I found there were the business sector. So you found investors or donors or philanthropists or people who were looking for where's the best place to invest. And I think it was an interesting combination of people who came all the way to Stockholm. And so the cross-pollination, so to speak, that happened there in the convergence of that combination of people was interesting and has a lot of potential. And I myself am looking forward to seeing what fruit comes of that. And additionally, for example, was meeting with the indigenous from the Amazon, who I've been working with closely, and specifically even people from Brazil and Fridays for Future, which we can get to later, but also some of them overlap. It was interesting for them to come all the way, even to an event where it's not any agreements, negotiations, or anything of that sort, but it was just an opportunity to meet decision makers and have their message amplified. So long as there's still deforestation happening and even still more acceleration, any opportunity to amplify that message, I think, is really important. And so that was one of the reasons I went as well. And then there was, of course, the climate strike, the march by Fridays for Future, which was amazing and powerful. And people actually, I noticed that like the global north and global south, the MAPA, most affected people in areas, were given a voice and a microphone and a stage to amplify their message and more than before. And I appreciate that that's starting to grow. And what, in addition to that, the sun did not ever set properly, and that was fascinating to experience. I think sunrise was at 2:30 a.m. and sunset seemed to be around 11 p.m., but it always stayed in a way that felt like twilight. That was the darkest we got. So it was pretty fascinating being so high, so up north. But yeah, so I think there was also World Environment Day after the event finished, and Stockholm had some events that they were hosting there. And I had already gone home. And since then, been kind of friendly with COVID. And I'm really glad that I could kind of be with you here right now, Domenico. Partly is because of your wise soul and talking me through the last few days, and also motivating me with all the energy you've come with from Bonn.
Thank you, Moran, and thank you for your time in such a condition. I think that yeah, we have to all be grateful to you for having you today, and thank you also for the feedbacks and the narrative on Stockholm, what's happened, and like uh, remind us also that there was a very important moment for the whole civil society, not just for like the people that are dealing with the environment. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's a beautiful opportunity to honor Sweden, who happened to have recognized that this is really important. And they went so far as to execute and implement and lead the way really with education, for example. And from then till now, I know for a fact that there's a lot of ripples that have come out of them prioritizing it, not to mention the Fridays for Future movement.
thank you very much, Moran, also for highlighting this point. And yeah, as Moran was mentioned, today I have also something to tell you about what's happening in Bonn. Actually, from 6 to 17 of June, it happened the intersessionals, so-called. Actually, they are the intermediate negotiation on climate change that are used to prepare the pathway for the COPs, for the next COP will be in Egypt, of course. It has
So
been
this is one of the milestone meetings on the road to COP, on the way to COP, as the countries prepare for the COP27.
exactly.
Great.
Actually, supposed to be a milestone meeting. Unfortunately, this time was not so milestone because few things have been achieved, but was quite expectable, standing the situation. And actually, yeah, were several points open to discuss. I don't want to be so technical, so I will be very brief on that. Actually, this next COP will be a COP very focused on adaptation. So how we cope with the extreme events and actually the effects that are already happening of climate change. And so what to discuss was basically how to cover financially all the measures that under the Paris Agreement were dealing with the adaptation. So there are several instruments, for example, the loss and damage, that are a sort of climate insurance for the countries that, in a way, are just being hit by climate change and they need to recover. The global adaptation goals. Global adaptation goals are like a sort of pathway that from COP26 in Glasgow till Sharm el Sheikh need to be perceived in order to adapt to climate change. And mitigation, of course, was another cross-cutting issue. Mitigation is always present: how to reduce emission, how to contribute to achieve 2050 neutrality for the rest of the countries, and so on and so forth. Basically, it was this the mainstream line, and together with that, the classical mitigation adaptation was very important. The streamline related to capacity building. Capacity building was like really related to ACE, so Action for Climate Empowerment, and especially another streamline now is born, that is the PCCB, so the Permanent Commission on Capacity Building.
I heard that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you more. Actually, this last one has been one of the most active and most fruitful, regards the other that were a little bit stucky. Uh, and
I look
yeah,
forward.
I will start maybe with that. Actually, I attended also some session of the PCCBs, and I can say the negotiation this time was very constructive and very collaborative. The parties and non-parties stakeholders were collaborating together, giving
Really?
contribution. Yeah. And actually was one of the lines, as I said, that more outcome from the SBs. Then the goal of PCTBs is to collect and to create frameworks and registers for the experience of capacity building, not only education, capacity building in general, uh, under the umbrella of Paris Agreement, of course, related to the issues of Paris Agreement. And actually, the idea is to support the knowledge transfer, the education activities, the stakeholder engagement, and so on and so forth. So, as been presented, the all the submission that have been done so far since the COP26 regarding capacity building activities, and actually has been launched also the call of events and activities under the PCB for COP27. This was like two
Okay,
of the
this I need to understand better.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. We are also with Hubs in Italia prepare a sort of report of the SBs where we are gonna put all these elements. Also, another nice
Thank
thing,
you, Hubs in Italia.
that happened was on Saturday 11. Actually, I was just arrived, and has been the European Youth Forum on Adaptation. This European Youth Forum on Adaptation was one of the many forums that the Global Center of Adaptation has done to involve regionally youth all over the world to contribute to the global goals of adaptation, as the one that I mentioned before. And this time, Bonn was the chance of Europe, and with brilliant and restless guidance of Adriana Valenzuela, that we greet you.
Yes,
Greet
I
her.
love
Hi,
her. I
Adriana.
saw her on the panel.
There was like a great panel that engage youth in discuss about a new and most resilient Europe, and several example of case studies has been showed by youth leading perspective and so on. So it was also another nice event that I mentioned also on that we are gonna make some reports with Abs in Italia. And yeah, what else? Last thing I mentioned, but it was not a result, but more a step forward on the modalities of negotiation. Actually, was discussed also the global stock take. Global stock take is kind of the ensemble, all the different efforts that the countries are together doing for mitigate and adapt, and how to coordinate that. Actually, sort of our like collection, planetary collection of actions regarding mitigation and adaptation, and how to synchronize them, and how to cope them with the carbon budget that annually we have for our life on Earth, basically. And this was
Wow, that's interesting.
one of the argument of the SBs. And today, this time, the negotiation has been led in a new and innovative manner. The parties has been engaged into a world cafe. I think that everyone is dealing with the participation or group management and so on are in a way familiar with the technique of world cafe, that basically gonna divide the participant into some tables, the cafes, and at a certain round, all the teams, all the groups that are dealing with the same topic are changing, are moving, and are exchange between one another.
Wow.
So it's a very dynamic and fruitful discussion way that the negotiator several times also in the plenary has mentioned as positive, as fruitful, as one methodology to continue also for the next negotiation. But standing to that, unfortunately, there were no results on that, but they appreciate the methodology.
Oh, I
So
would like to hear more about that.
yeah, actually was also impressed and a little bit in a way surprised, but in a positive way, because I know work cafe technique and how powerful it is. Was like funny to me to see how
They were
negotiation was
doing so the negotiators used the method,
yeah,
and this was the
exactly.
first time.
Yeah, like it's happened with Talanoa, no, we know all
Mm-hmm.
Talanoa,
Mm-hmm.
that from COP23 was introduced as methodology, and actually was not present before. And when it broke in, was like a successful innovation and so on. Similarly,
Mm.
the World Cafe is the new innovation into the negotiation methodology.
Can you tell us
Yeah,
a bit more, like for anyone who's watching who might not know what it
yeah,
is, and then who it was there, maybe afterwards, who
yeah.
initiated
Actually,
it there?
the initiator were the secretariat that, in a way, moderates always all the sessions in the UNFCCC scenarios. And actually, they propose to the participant, to the parties, and so on, to bring the discussion into a structured way, not just I don't know, round table and so on, but in this way, work cafe or Talanoa was in COP23. So to have a structured dialogue in a way.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, it was interesting. Was also funny because I saw, maybe I don't know if I have the infographics that has been used for from the negotiators to explain
Mm.
the methodology. Just one moment.
Well, I thought, yeah, there you are.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
you
sorry.
froze for a second.
Yeah,
That's okay.
no, I have another hard disk that I have to take, and so
No,
maybe I
that's
have
okay.
not the
Take your
time.
time. I just thought you froze. So,
No, I mean,
take your time. Go ahead.
yeah, maybe I will go to
Oh,
search that in the meanwhile. Yeah, because there is another place in my computer that I have to find. I was not so prepared on using that.
no,
By
that's
the
okay.
way,
It's part of the beauty of Sustainable Sundays, right? So we can be really authentic with our conversation and we're just inviting people into our conversation, right?
let me see. Yes, let me see if I maybe manage like this. Yeah. So just one second. Okay, here we are. Yeah, actually, I take also a lot of photos, a lot of inputs and so on. I into like a separate folder because we're usually these conference give you a lot of information and you have to also organize by yourself a bit. So here we are. Okay.
So Domenico is pulling up something that's super unique that by not being at Fun, we are getting to look a little peek into what was happening there. Because the meetings that are there, we never know where we're actually making the impact. But I'm starting to think that, the type of expectations that we have of the decision makers are very big. But when you actually dive in and dig in and start to do the work, you realize that from idea to execution, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of coordination, communication, time, patience, orchestration. Um, and so anything that we do move forward with, I think is bigger than we see it. Kind of like bird's eye view. You can move a millimeter from a bird's eye view, but then it has an impact on the ground that can be much bigger. But
I didn't find the exact photo, but I found something else.
okay.
Um, the session is, I try to understand, is very technical. Is less, we can say, um, divulgative as maybe can be the COP. No, COP has also more media coverage, and know all the people know about COP and so on. SBs are very technical issues and so on. But in fact, standing for that, they were very interesting because there were also a lot of scientific contributions from IPCC and scientists. These are, like, for example, posters that scientific posters that was showcasing the effects on climate change,
Wow.
data and so on. And they were like there was an exhibition, permanent exhibition during the days of SBs with these posters, and it was quite interesting. I can say.
Can
I
we maybe post those on BN Hubzine?
Yes, I don't know.
for a
Yeah, if
closer
there
look?
are some. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe I don't know if there is some copyright sync, but I mean, we are showing now here on my computer. I don't know if there are some copyrights, but you can find all the materials into like the website of the SBs. Now I send. And also, I will conclude with this note. There was like several events also regarded the role of indigenous knowledge on solving the climate crisis, especially in agriculture. Even though the dedicated streamline of negotiation on agriculture that was the Coronivia was one of the unsuccessful, we can say, because no money was put in there, and so several countries were complaining about the fact that, especially we can say, AU and US sometimes were reluctant this time to put the money in. Uh, yeah, this is the website. You can see there are all the events, live blog. You can go there and uh, show see what's happened. Like I was saying, the global stock take where the work cafe was done. Another streamline was the mitigation work program that was like a new initiative that has arisen here in Bonn to mitigate and to create a work program for mitigation. Uh, yeah, and things like this. One only last, yeah, I just close with that. Actually, one of the reasons that maybe these conferences were so unfruitful, my opinion has been that in a way, in a silent way, into like a backup way, we can say, some geopolitical tension has in a way jeopardized a little bit the negotiation. Was not so explicit, we can say, was not so clear defined, even though some references to the current war was happened. But for example, the fact that no money was put in uh, demonstrate that no one wants to expose now standing to this situation. And this is something that we, a community of climate leaders, climate advocates, we have to reflect on. As Moran was saying, there could be no climate action without peace. And the results of these SBs demonstrate that. The floor to you, Moran.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm thinking of the different things that you just mentioned. I took some notes here and I'm thinking, I mean, we went from financial to global adaptation goals, the PCCB, global stock take, work up by the structured dialogue, and we ended up with actually um, well, you showed us into some of the scientific facts and also um, with ended up with war, which I think the last time we spoke, we did talk about your activities and being involved with that. I'm just thinking 20, 30 years from now when we look back and tell our children the stories. And I want to thank you for all the efforts you've been doing. It's not just for the Ukrainians or Russians, it's for all of humanity. And it's about humanity, it's about being humane. And I think that's really, maybe that's the guiding factor on this entire climate change kind of movement. Um, because at the end of the day, I thought to myself, what happened in the 90s when there was hunger in Africa? We managed to get a lot of people to put a lot of money together and give it to the people on the ground who were doing the work, whether it's NGOs or whatnot. And also, right now, we need even more than that for global hunger, not only Africa, but what's so hard? Why is it so hard to get the resources we need? Because I think starting with financial, uh, with every, I actually have a question for you and me. I don't know if you have the answer at all, but Is there a global fund like around the UN work or the UNFCCC, the COPs? I know that there are sponsors who give money for the COPs to be able to happen. I know that they're not always government funded, but do we have some sort of a collective fund to solve global crises? I know loss and damage is one thing, but that's kind of like people going back in history and calculating each country. It's a little bit silly, but I mean, maybe it could be per capita, something like that, that every country puts a representation of finances per person or something. Where are we at with that? It was just the first point I wrote down.
Actually, yeah, there are funds. There are of course, the World Bank that is financing projects on development, on the implementation of Agenda 2030. Actually, regarding the climate, there is like the Global Climate Fund and Global Adaptation Fund that are two funds that are
What was the second
defined.
one? I didn't hear.
Global Adaptation Fund
Adaptation
or
fund, right?
Adaptation Fund. These are two funds that actually are not yet covered. And that's the problem. But they've been defined under the Paris Agreement, and actually their implementation is needed properly to implement all the action that I was mentioning before. And the issue of finance is actually to finance these two funds, the Adaptation and Green Climate Fund.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are things, but the issue is that some of them are project based. For example, World Bank and Green Climate Fund are project based. Some other the scope is not defined. Sometimes there are funds actually. The thing is how to mobilize them, how to allow the countries to access to them, how to create, for example, mechanism as Article 6 is doing to implement the collaborative approach between countries, how countries can collaborate to benefit all together on tackling the climate crisis. For example, if I am a country that wants to do something in another country, I don't know, I'm a solar panel constructor, and I want to create a solar panel plant in Africa, whatever. How can this be regulated under the Paris Agreement in order for me to have benefits to make the solar plant? For the other issue from the community in which I'm doing that, to benefit from the fact that I'm doing that, and how does can be counting under my national determined contribution. So national determined contribution are the plans, the strategies in which the countries are asked to present their commitments for the Paris Agreement. So all these things need to be in a way regulated, and how the very issue is to mobilize the finance, mobilize the funds that maybe can be available, but they are not flowing, no, in the right way. And that's the big deal now with the implementation of the so-called Glasgow Climate Pact. The Glasgow Climate Pact was like the big resolution that came out from COP26 that defined some mechanism, not all, some of them. And for that, of course, we need to continue to negotiate, continue to define the framework, and so on and so forth. The question is how much time we have to spend to frame and how much time we have to spend to do. That's the point. But I mean, I think that the two things need to be in parallel, and also here the role of civil society is essential and very powerful. Civil society actually is just ready sometimes to do things, and the grassroots movement, the community-based organization, and so on, are just doing, and without any framework and so on. And sometimes it's more effective than like a framework and so
And
on.
some of them have a framework and are not waiting for the government.
Exactly. But the issue is that if these like wonderful initiative from the civil society is sided by the government action and the availability of finance, of course, we can understand that the impact can be more amplified, and that's what we needed, because just one community, just one group of willing people cannot do what like an entire nations need to do. So yeah,
But we have a few examples of what a small group of humans can do together. And we also, I think, have a lot more people who are self-organizing right now to get the information out there. I mean, I can speak for myself at least, okay? At the end of this month, actually June 28th or so, marks 14 years for me working on B, okay? And really, I'm nowhere near an expert, but working with the cross comparison and analysis of data that other people who are experts have spent years collecting, and I know that there are handfuls of people who've also spent more time doing spending time thinking and researching and developing concepts that could help us get there faster, but it's not yet the bridge. Again, we go back to the bridge we always like to talk about, of between civil society and the decision makers. There's another point, let's see, the global stock take. Can we talk about that for a few minutes before we wrap up here?
yeah,
What you were referring to, and can you tell us a little bit more about what that meant at Bonn?
yeah. Sorry, can you repeat that, please? I didn't.
Yeah, just tell us a bit more about the global stock take and what was done at Bonn around the mitigation and adaptation,
Yeah,
mitigating adaptation.
the global stock take, as I said, is actually the coordinated action of all the countries regarding tackling climate change. So basically, is I will make it very simple. All the countries are doing something, and into the global stock take, they are discussing what they are doing in order to coordinate and to make a synergic action, not just I don't know, a country action that is doing the thing alone, but
Coordinated.
yeah. And actually, the global stock take is like this big umbrella in which every party is asked to stay coordinated properly. And of course, the meeting of the global stock take are about coordination on this action. Also considering the like annual carbon budget that we have. So the amount of carbon or CO2 that we can emit, at least standing our reduction path. Of course, we have still, but I mean, it's not an excuse. We have still some possibilities to like emit per year, so a sort of carbon budget properly that we can use to emit year by year, but we have to stay into that globally. And so the global stock take needs to also understand if all the action that we are doing is inside this budget. And of course, some guiding principle. For example, this time we discussed that every mitigation action and adaptation need to be just, sustaining into just transition. They not to be damage the human rights and indigenous rights and so on. This is something that was remarked also in Article 6.
Oh, wow, great.
But moreover, yeah, for example, I can build a solar plant into the Amazon is not correct, no? I mean, I can try to mitigate with the solar energy, but I don't have to damage the rights of the indigenous communities and the human rights. I don't know. I
Yes.
can kill a community to to build up a wall for the floods. Is not allowed. But
No, no.
uh,
Right, right, right.
and
Amazing.
yeah, actually, this was discussed. This was pointed, but not like we can say written in stone. That's the point of the discussion. The
Right.
finally on the global stock take, as I said, the discussion was going very good thanks to the methodology. A lot of agreement was achieved, but without a real definition of the decision that is
Mm-hmm.
mandate to the COP27.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'm texting you right now. If you want to do a quick screen share, a very interesting um, initiative called Earth
Uh-huh.
Live, and it's really kind of like a global stock take of our resources through the data that's collected in our satellite. NASA recently approved this. These guys are talking to me about collaboration through V. It's a huge,
Uh-huh.
huge, huge honor. But it's basically a future tool that basically takes the data from the satellite, cross compares and analyzes it, and I, and I'm saying this and aware that I might not be doing it the best justice, but something like on a 24-hour basis, the information is updated and you can actually see a 3D model of planet Earth. And so this is a fascinating initiative that I met the founder and CEO and visionary of it a couple times. And one of the interesting things they're doing, for example, to start with is looking at the deforestation rates and seeing if we can actually give a bird's eye view of the calculations. There you go. Um, and it's absolutely fascinating. So when we say global stock take, mitigating adaptation, etc., I think to myself, wow, imagine we had all the resources we needed. We have people like this already informing. First of all, every person can have a much easier time comprehending all that data, compressing it together, and being able to apply it to understanding systems and our natural system. So for me, I mean, you can call it like a Google Earth on steroids. It's like
Oh, it's super. It's
really,
amazing.
it's amazing, amazing, amazing. And like I said, the fact that NASA approved for them to actually collaborate and they're going to give them access to the real live data is incredible. And that's another example of what I'm saying, the bridging between civil society and um, leading negotiators for decision making around the world. And I just kind of to conclude the thought, I mean, when you look at this, I don't see borders. I don't
Yeah.
see borders. We can't look at like where's the rain falling, without looking at the entire system. Um, Speaking of which, water being, really the most essential element for life. Um, but anyhow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This is. Mhm.
Actually, I totally agree on what you said, and I can say that in these days, that still in 2022, there are people that want to demonstrate their leadership and rulement around the other countries. We did understand that we are not like playing the the game on who is the best or who is ruling around the world, but we have to coordinate our efforts and our power all together for like a common effort. And
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed this day to understand that there are some leaders still in the world that wants to just demonstrate their power against the other countries instead of demonstrate their power with their other countries. So together with other countries. This is the real power, in my opinion, and not just the possibility to
Hmm.
invade or like demonstrate who is the most power for country in the world. Sorry for this, but
Absolutely.
your map as and your borders less mention reminds me this word.
Oh yeah, don't apologize. Absolutely not. I mean, you know that I'm a climate ambassador with the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research, and maybe we could go deeper into that one day and bring a guest as well. But just to say, one of the things that we advocate for is an we call it an ICE, International Court for the Environment. That if we could have a court for the environment, it would have to be international and it would force humanity to work together, as you're saying. And I can also say that there was a great post yesterday saying that the Middle East is actually showing signs of some pretty historic engagements made around the fact that even in this part of the world, some of the countries are realizing that they need to forge agreements if we're all going to survive, because MENA and Middle East and Northern Africa region are going to be hit hard with it's already being felt in temperature changes here in the region. But anyhow, I think that we have work to do. We have a long road ahead of us, but we don't have that much time to do it in. So actually, I kind of like the fact that we have to work fast and we have to, we have a deadline to reach. It's kind of going to push us in the bottleneck to do it faster. I just wish we didn't have to get to stressing and we could take the time we have in advance. But I think it's fascinating that we're all looking at how to come up with whole systems that can work. And you, as an engineer, know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, the research is very interesting. That the one that you showed, and I'm going to that. My engineer
Go
mind
dive in.
just was just like speaking, understand what was there and so on. So I think that there is a very understand and very interesting tool that we can explore and so on.
I can invite her to speak with us on a Sustainable Sundays. That could be good.
For sure, it would be great. It would be a fantastic. Maybe the next one we can organize on that.
Yeah. Let's talk to her, and also Climate Social Forum. Let's get her
Yeah, yeah.
to join us there as well. Um, one last word before we close up, because we're at the top of the hour. Something about ACE. Can you give us any updates? ACE Ecos, I
Yeah,
saw in some of the
I
posts.
follow negotiation of ACE. Actually, I've been sincere. I need to go a little bit into the documents of ACE.
Hmm.
What I very highlight that I heard also from the colleagues and so on was several points discussed about the real participation of youths in the process and how to really implement participation on youths because sometimes I mean participation of youths is a on the amount of everyone's talk about participation but effective participation there are few experiences still on that we have to take it as a case studies as a case sample but we have to understand that not just mention participation means participation but we have to really define criterias, ways, uh, methodologies in order to foster the participation of youths. Even though it's just uh, youth washing, this is a word that into the, for example,
Mm.
European Youth Adaptation Forum was mentioned, and I very appreciate because it was, I mean, shocking. Was the disruptive word that we were like
Wow.
we want to find for describe these events, these initiative that just put a youth on the screen, but without listen to what you say, and yeah, to avoid there actually regarding on that, I want just to mention that not like now is quite a few time ago, but there was like a researcher from UNICEF Children's Center, Roger Hart. I don't know if you know that define very well the ladder of participation. That is this sort of scale of engagement of youths that pass through just tokenism, just okay, I can invite youth and I can say that the words of youth is mine, to real deliberative participation, engagement, decision making, involvement, and so on. I think that I suggested also to the colleagues that were dealing with ACE to mention that and to refer to that, because we have to understand which degree of participation we are talking about. Is not just mentioning, is not just put youth onto the title of the event to make it participative, and so that's
Oh,
also the
interesting. Yeah, I love it. Youth washing. Psh,
yeah
we've come to that.
yeah
Well, I guess it was only a question of time. But what I like to see is, first of all, youth interested in their future. Secondly, following that up with action for their future. And third of all is, I saw you guys at Bond this year, and I was like, those could be the future negotiators. Like, these are the people who are interested and willing to volunteer and put their time in. But not only that, there's also like actually training up to end up becoming the people who are hopefully eventually going to be sitting at the table and
yeah
making the decisions in the future. People like you who have been in the sphere for a long time. So it's not like you're coming out of nowhere. You're actually growing from within the system. You, Miro, Tim, all these guys, all these kinds of people, and Adriana. I mean, shouldn't mention more. It's amazing. Thank you for taking the time to tell us all about how it was for you at Bonn, and also really for us, because you're more of like an ambassador speaking on behalf of the rest of the world, and really take volunteering your time to both go there and do what you did there. And even now, I know that you've taken on the PCCB, and I'm really looking forward to that. Maybe we can do a whole day on that, a session on that.
Okay, thank you to you for your time, also for telling us about what happened in Stockholm, and thank you also for your time considering your situation. And I think that we all are with you for your recovery. For recovery.
I thank you. Today we had no fever, so this
Oh,
is good.
great.
I look forward to getting out of my lockdown, but I will tell you that I'm lucky to have a garden and go get some vitamin D. I think that really, really helps during Corona.
Yeah,
So yeah, and it's a good time to understand who's there for you, and being there for each other. It's a time where we have to learn to ask for help and also take a moment to be silent. Um, Okay. Thanks, Domenico. It's always such an
thanks for us.
honor and a pleasure being with you on Sustainable Sundays.
Same
Looking
to
forward
me.
to the next one.
Bye.
Bye.